All right, welcome in. I have with me today Adam Badger, who is a friend. I've been on his podcast a couple times and finally got him on here. He sent me a message the other day. He's like, "When am I coming on?" I'm like, my bad. Sorry, bud." But great coach out of New York, and just has become a friend in the industry. Dad with baby number 2 coming here in the next month or so. And then your son is 3, almost 4 now.
Three
Right?
and a half, yeah.
Three and a
Three and a
half.
half.
Um,
Crazy.
just awesome. Awesome coach. Awesome guy to talk to. And so we're gonna rip it up. This is gonna be one of the quicker episodes that we do, but it's gonna be rapid fire, talking about fitness and parenting, particularly mindset stuff. So want to start here because we talked for 30 minutes before we started recording here.
Yeah, if we go a little over, it's totally fine.
Yeah, we probably should have. I should have just recorded because there was a lot of value there. But we were talking about the idea of what does it look like when a couple of things start to go wrong. So you're talking about like your son got sick last night and is home from school today, and that throws off the work calendar. But there's a lot of parallels between work and the fitness journey. And so when you have an interruption, which is almost inevitable when it comes to being a parent, for the schedule that you have planned, what are some of the things preventative and then reactive that you talk through from a mindset perspective, from a logistics perspective with your clients about dealing with the interruptions of life?
That's a really good question, man. So it's funny because I talked to a client about that this morning. I mentioned to him how last night, like, my son got sick, and yesterday was kind of a nonstop day for me. So I was like up at 4 a.m. and I was pretty much just like, it was just like one of those days where you don't sit. So I was like, it was either working with in-person clients, or I was doing my workout, or I was parenting, or I was doing my online stuff. And it, like, from 4 a.m. to just like 6 p.m. it was like nonstop. And then, like, right as we're finishing dinner and the night's calming down, my son's like not feeling well. And then right around like 8 o'clock, it's like puke on the floor, right? Of course, on carpet too. So, like, not even on like the hardwood floor.
Yeah, they go to the carpet. It's like, oh, I almost got it on the hardwood. Aren't you happy I made it to the couch?
Also, here's the thing too. As a little side note, is we had just ordered groceries that day, and there was a miscommunication between me and my wife of no one was aware that we were out of paper towels. So there's puke all over the floor, and we don't have any paper towels, and it's 8 o'clock at night, and he's not feeling well. And the reason why I brought that up is because yesterday I still worked out, I still hit my protein, I still hit my calories for the day. And I wasn't saying that to gloat. I was just saying that, like, these things just have to become non-negotiables, and it takes time to get there. Now, I'm not saying like I'm perfect like that all of the time, or that's always what the case is, but to be preventative, I think the biggest thing you could do to be preventative of going off track in moments like those is actually knowing what it is that you're supposed to be focusing on. I think a lot of times people don't know what they even need to be focusing on with their nutrition or with their training. So when things go haywire at home or at work, they're not then going to also try to figure out, well, what do I have to do to keep my nutrition on track today? So it's first just like knowing what needs to get done. And I know for me, the non-negotiables is like, okay, I'm going to have a protein at every meal. I'm going to eat at least 3 to 4 meals a day. Like, I know that I have to squeeze this workout in at some point, and if that means I'm going to sacrifice sleep, or I have to say no to something else to get that in, like, it's going to happen. So, like, today, waking up, I knew my son was going to be home in the morning, so I might not have time at some point to work out today. So what I do, like, I worked out at like 5 a.m., so earlier than I normally would, and I had to do that on an empty stomach because I didn't have time to eat beforehand. So again, it's like a not ideal situation, but accepting the fact that, like, I'm moving the needle forward somehow. So I think preventative is more just, hey, knowing what are the non-negotiables that I need to focus on, and to be in that reactive mindset of understanding, like, what is my A plus, A minus, A, B plus, B minus choices, as opposed to going from just pass fail. So I know, like, my A plus behavior is I'm going to work out at this time. I'm going to have this many meals. I'm going to have this many calories, this much protein. But my A minus behavior might be I have to move the workout time. My B plus behavior might be, hey, I'm not going to hit my calories today, but I'm going to at least hit my protein goal and my workout. And then if I ship that all the way down, there would have to be a lot of dominoes would have to fall for it to be a completely crap day, right? So you have to have like that grading system, I think.
I think there's two things here I want to dig into. It's when we think about, so let's start on the preventative side of things.
Yeah.
I've been working on a theory and I want to get your thoughts on it.
I love it.
Discipline is overrated.
Okay.
Meaning, when we think about discipline, right, we think about I'm going to do what I don't want to do, or I'm not going to do what I want to do in the moment, right? That's discipline. I'm going to do it regardless of how I feel. The preventative side of things that you're talking about is really where discipline comes into play is in the preamble, in the setup. And then it's just a matter of the execution of it and adapting within the confines of the situation. So let's take, for instance, the protein piece of it. If your son is sick and the work, like all is going haywire and you're like, I don't have time to make lunch today.
Yeah.
Right. There's a difference between I have some chicken already grilled because I've done that work ahead of time and all I have to do is just heat up the meal versus I gotta make a meal right now. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to be disciplined enough when life is going haywire to make a meal in that moment. But if I was disciplined, quote unquote, in the setup, like I've just created an environment for myself where all I have to do is execute, and executing can go on that spectrum like you talk about. Your thoughts? That's just a theory I've been playing around with.
I know. I think I agree with it. I think the whole discipline and like motivation thing is definitely overrated. And I agree with your concept. Like the discipline is more so in the setup than the execution. You only have to be disciplined when you're trying to execute if you're not properly set up.
Yes.
But I think also too, it's the mindset. And follow me on this one. If let me know how you feel on this. I've been talking to my clients a lot about this, and hopefully this will help your listeners too. Is this the whole thing around discipline comes from the mindset of these tasks that I need to do to get to this goal that I really want are things I don't want to do. Right. So that's the whole mindset, right? Because you're, like you said, discipline is doing stuff you don't want to do or being structured with something regardless of how you feel. It's like, okay, I just have to be disciplined with this, even if I don't feel like doing it. Does that mean you're never going to not feel like doing it? Like, of course not. But I'd say for most of our clients, when they're first starting this, they're coming at it from a mindset of, I'm going to do these things that I don't enjoy doing to get to this result. And I think if you have that mindset, for most people, you are just like, you're just on a time, like an hourglass now of like when you're going to throw in the towel. So you have to stop building up this fitness thing as this. I think people use their fitness as a voodoo doll or a surrogate for bullies or structures in their life that they don't feel they can stand up to. So a lot of people they feel like they can't stand up to their boss, or they can't set boundaries with their partner, or they can't set boundaries with their mother or their father or their extended family or their friends. They're people pleasers, they're caregivers, they're they feel like they always have to say yes to everything. So a way to fulfill that like subconscious desire to stand up to a bully, they take this goal that they want and they make a bully out of fitness. So when they think of fitness as I have to meticulously track my macros. I have to eat this dry ass chicken when I don't want to. I have to do these Bulgarian split squats when I don't want to. I have to wake up earlier. I have to, step on the scale every day and look at my body weight. I have to take measurements or progress pictures. I got to report to a coach and tell them how I fucked up this week. So they create it as this bully. And then when they say no to it, they feel that desire of, oh, I stood up to a bully, because they don't feel like they can stand up to these things in their day-to-day life. And I see this, and it might sound kind of woo-woo or out there, but I've seen this a lot, and and the only reason I feel so confident saying that on here is because I've said that to clients before, and they've literally come back to me with, holy crap, that's so true. I just never thought of it that way. Like, I asked one of my clients, we're digging into her mindset of like, why in the past has she struggled with yo-yo dieting? Why does she always sabotage herself? Why does she always quit on herself in the past? And I said, don't think about it. First thought, the first word that comes to your head, what feeling do you get when you quit your diet? Like, in the past, every time you've quit on weight loss, what's the first feeling that comes to your mind?
Relief.
It's like relief.
I nailed it.
Relief. Because she's like, oh, good, I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And I said, think about it, because when people say self-sabotage, what would you think feeling that would bring up? Disappointment, frustration, stuff like sadness? No, it's fucking relief, because you're like, oh, good, I don't have to do that anymore. It's like quitting a job that you hate. You get away from that bully boss. So I think right off the bat, if you want to mitigate the amount of discipline you need, you have to change your entire mindset around this process and look at it as like a friend or something that you enjoy doing, as opposed to like this bully that you're never going to stand up to.
I think it's a really interesting perspective on it, and I'll take it one step further. Mm-hmm. So, which I don't know if you thought that we could, but we're going to go there. I want to hear your thoughts on this piece of it, because we don't do this in a lot of other areas in our life. There's something interesting about the fitness and nutrition space, that it's built around, I don't want to say negativity, because I think it's more than that. Like, it's built around destroying what you once were, right? Like, it's like beat yourself into the ground with your workouts and do the hard, like the strict diet, and like, I have to be adherent. It's the drill sergeant football coach. You know what I mean? That nobody wants to play for. Like, if you do anything wrong, you just run, or you're going to get screamed at. And there's a perspective on it where, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, because I think that it's easy to blame messaging, and I don't want to go there with it. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the relationship that people have with exercise and fitness is surrounded becoming less, or lose weight, leave yourself in a puddle on the ground. Like, it is this negative relationship with it. And so when you think about how do we build a positive relationship with something that has, while still wanting to pursue that goal, right? Because that's the tension I think that a lot of people live in, is I want the outcome, and you can potentially get the outcome, and that's potentially the shortest path to get there, by just strict diet, beat yourself into the ground with your workouts, and do the thing. But most of the time you have a negative relationship with it. But they still want the outcome of, hey, I lost weight, I got in shape, and all of these kinds of things, but doing it in a positive way. How do you do that reframe? Or what are some of your thoughts on the shift from, I still want the goal, but to kind of embrace the journey piece of it?
No, that's a good question. So I think that one analogy that I would use would you say, like, are most of your clients or listeners tend to be female, male?
Yeah.
Or
female. I would say, I don't
mostly female.
It's probably two-thirds female.
Yeah. So if you're a female listening to the Fit and Present Parent podcast, so if you're a female who's a parent, there's a high likelihood that you've had to give birth, or have a C-section, or grow a baby inside of you at some point. Mm-hmm. And that is predominantly not an enjoyable process. Right? my wife is 8 months pregnant right now, and she does not feel great. And then she has to give birth, which can be very, very difficult. But why do people have multiple kids if they know that the pregnancy part is rough, because of the long-term benefit of being a parent and getting that fulfillment and getting that love and raising a child and like all the awesome stuff that comes with a parent. And even the process of being a parent comes with a lot of tough nights, tough days, like inconvenience. But there's an I believe there's just like an internal belief in the people who choose to be parents that they can do the parenting thing. So because
Mm-hmm.
they have that internal belief and they have that accountability of you're watching this kid grow, and if you make more mistakes than not mistakes, then the kid's going to get messed up. So like you have accountability, you have consequences, and you have an internal belief that you can do this, and you're committed because once the baby's out, now you're in it. Like you can't give it away. So there's commitment, there's consequences, there's accountability, and there's belief. So you have to start applying those same traits that make you a good present parent to your fitness journey. You need to have realistic consequences, right? Because that's the thing with fitness, right? The consequences don't show up right away. They show up 10 years down the line. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you're not consistent with your nutrition this week, nothing really bad is going to happen. You're not consistent with your nutrition for the next year, you're going to gain 30 pounds. So what you want to do is start looking for ways to set up consequences for yourself. This is key, that are less enjoyable than like your consequences can't be more enjoyable than the task you were supposed to do. So a lot of people make this mistake, right? I forgot to pack lunch, so I got McDonald's. That's not a consequence, because McDonald's was more enjoyable than the lunch you were going to eat. So
Yeah.
now what you're telling yourself, what you're doing is you're setting the standard that when you forget to bring your lunch, you get to now have pizza. You get to now have McDonald's. So what I tell clients to do is, hey, if you forget to pack your lunch, what you got to do is you got to go to the gas station and get a cottage cheese and a fucking banana, and tell me next time that you are going to forget. If you know that every time you forget your lunch, you got to eat cottage cheese and a banana at a gas station, you're going to be like, well, I better pack my lunch because I don't want to do that again. But if
Yep.
you've trained yourself to go, hey, every time I miss my lunch, I get to have pizza. It's even if it's subconscious, you're going to forget your lunch more often because you know the consequence is more enjoyable than the task you were supposed to do. Same thing with your workouts. If you have one too many margaritas on a Tuesday night and you're supposed to work out at 5
I
a.m. and
feel
you
personally
hit
attacked
this,
by this because I had a margarita last night.
but
Yeah.
if you had one too many,
Mm-hmm.
and then you woke up on Wednesday or whatever day it is, and you're supposed to work out at 5 a.m. and then you hit the snooze, what you're telling yourself is every time I'm hungover or I have too many margaritas, I get to sleep in. What you want to do is you want to get up and have a shitty workout hungover. Because then what you're going to do is you're going to tell yourself, I don't want to do this again. Because again, it's a non-negotiable. You got to make the workout. So I think a way to make the process more enjoyable is your consequences for not being adherent should be less enjoyable than being adherent. So by doing that, you start to build enjoyable things into your adherence plan. So if you know, hey, once or twice a week, I want to go out to dinner with my wife or husband, or I want to have a couple of drinks, we build that into your plan, right? Because if you say I'm never going to do that, then
Mm-hmm.
that's where the relief comes in. Oh, as soon as I quit my diet, I can go out to dinner again. I can have drinks. We want to make that part of the plan. We want to make the plan as enjoyable as possible. But when you fuck up, right, you should have a consequence that is an actual consequence. It can't be more enjoyable than the thing you were supposed to do.
Parenting analogy to take this from there, because this I think makes all the sense in the world. You're not going to skip the nap,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
no,
Because the
no,
consequence of skipping, you know what I mean? Or
yeah,
you're not gonna drive at 6 p.m. for more than
yeah,
10 minutes because you have ruined your entire night. You know what
yeah,
I mean? Like the consequences are too much in order to do it. However, all that means is, you know what? It's actually good for me to figure out a way to do the nap. Like to
mm-hmm,
do the initial fight. Like my kid doesn't want to nap right now. All
mm-hmm,
you have to do is not have them nap once to realize that the fight with them over the nap is worth it as
yeah,
compared to what the fight the rest of your day will be like if you don't let them nap.
yeah, 100%.
And so it's because we can think about consequences in a negative light, but it's not like consequences are just the natural repercussions of your actions, good or bad.
Yeah,
And so it's the outcome related to what it is that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is again the setup for it, the discipline of it, which is just, you know what, like, this is actually for my good. Because
Yeah.
this is the other piece of it when it comes to the kids piece, because I think that's a great nugget. But I think the stakes piece is super valuable. So the last piece that
Mm-hmm.
you said there with the kids is, kid comes out and you're a parent, and you are forever a parent. Like, it doesn't, like,
And
I'm
yeah.
gonna be dad for the rest of my life. Like, I called my dad the other day and I was like, hey, what do I do when, you know what I mean? Like, my parents are always gonna be it's just what it is. And you
Yeah.
don't get a break. You don't get to, it's not like a job that you're like, oh, this doesn't work for me, I gotta go over here. Like, this is who, part of your identity for the
Mm-hmm.
rest of your life. And
Yeah.
so when you take the end date off of it, when you take the opt out option away, and you're
Mm-hmm.
just like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, you can have a crap day as a parent, and you do, but that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that you get to just be like, all right, I'll try again in 4 months. Like, let's just, let's punt on this, or let's just have another kid and we'll try with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you don't
Well, no,
just take a mulligan on it.
yeah. I think you made a really good point too. It was about the identity shift, and that's
Mm-hmm.
another thing I talk to my clients a lot about too. And imagine if you had a baby and you said, "Hey, man, when this kid goes off to college, or when this kid gets married, or when this kid has their own baby, then when that happens, I can call myself a parent because I know that I did a good job, right?" You
So
can't
good.
associate your identity with the end result. So a lot of people do that. They
Yep.
go, man, when I lose 30 pounds, then I'll be a healthy, fit, confident person. Because what you can do is then you could push that off as much as you want. And there's a second deeper piece to this, but I think first you have to associate the identity with becomes ingrained when you make the decision. So once you have the baby, you're now a parent. You can choose to be a shitty parent, but like that's still an option. Like there's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's certain laws obviously that will take it away from you. But at the end of the day, like it's still a choice. Like a
Mm-hmm.
shitty parent and a good parent, none of that happens by accident. Like there's environmental things, there's upbringing that affect your decisions. But at the end of the day, like you have to make a conscious decision to be a good parent, or you can just fuck off and be a shitty parent, right? But like you're still a parent either way. The identity
Mm-hmm.
doesn't get taken away. When you decide to be, improve your health, you have to just make a decision. I'm a healthy fit person, and I'm a healthy fit person based on the decisions that I make, not based on the result that I get. So if you're a female and let's say you're 220 pounds and you want to get down to 150 pounds, you're not a fit healthy person at 150 pounds. You're a fit healthy person when you start doing fit healthy person things. So as soon as you start prioritizing the protein, you start working out 3 or 4 days a week, you're a fit healthy person now. You have to buy into that identity now, because then when you hit those inevitable roadblocks, all you have to do is be like, well, what would fit healthy me
Mm-hmm.
do? And that answers your question. It just becomes an A or B choice. Because if I any one of our clients and I said, hey, listen, in this situation, what would the fit, healthy, confident version of you do? You could tell me, right? You know exactly what it is, but it's just you haven't connected emotionally to that identity yet. And I think a lot of times, back to what we were talking about before, when people feel that relief, it's because they're viewing this fitness lifestyle, this healthy lifestyle, as this bully.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also have this in the back of their mind is, well, once I reach that goal weight,
Mm-hmm.
now I have the pressure of having to sustain it.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times they sabotage their
Mm-hmm.
progress as a way to avoid the pressure of having to sustain it. It would be like, going back to the parent analogy, if like, if you're like, hey, uh, you're just talking a lot with you're talking a lot with your wife about, yo, yeah, we want to have kids, we want to have kids, we want to have kids, and then every time your wife's like, all right, I'm ovulating, let's try tonight, you're like, you come up with an excuse not to, right? You're trying to like avoid it. It's like, but you say you want kids, but you're avoiding, you're avoiding doing the thing to, because, oh well, yeah, but once I have a kid, then we have to do daycare, we have to change diapers. You start thinking of all the things you have to do. So then you avoid doing the thing that gets the kid. Right.
Yes.
So like a lot of times people do that is with their health and fitness. They're like, they know what they got to do. It's right laid out right in front of you. I mean, we've been coaches for a while. You've had plenty of clients who have had really great results, and you've had clients who you've laid out the perfect plan for them and they just didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can dig into the reasons why, but a lot of times it's because they're just not ready to leave their old identity. And they're also afraid of, well, if I track calories now, that means when I lose 50 pounds, I'm going to have to track calories for the rest of my life. And I don't want to do that. And then it spirals, and then they quit. Where if you can coach them, if they're a little more open to talking, you can say, hey, listen, we're tracking calories now to build habits. Once these habits are built, you've built this new identity. Guess what? You don't got to track calories for the rest of your life. You know, you're not going to have to do that. But again, they have this like fear. It's a lot of stuff.
Start with the first part, go to the second part. First part, the be, do, have cycle, right? Like I've talked about this where I didn't feel like a dad. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you had this moment, but like, there's something interesting. And I think it's different for moms. Like my wife, right? Like, feel him. Like he's always with her, you know, for 9 months. For me, you know, I'd feel it's a little different, right? But he comes out and I look at him, this is my son, right? And I'm his father, but I don't feel like I'm dad to him, you know, immediately.
Yeah.
But then I change his diaper and I give him a bottle and I wake up with him in the middle of the night and I do all of the things that, and then I become more of dad. And then those things become second nature, but I do them in the place where I don't feel like that's a natural thing for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you may say, all right, my identity is dad. Therefore I have to do dad things, but they're going to feel unnatural until you do them. And then the more you do them, the more you become that person, the more of those things you do. And as that goes back and forth, then the natural response to that or the natural result of that is you're going to have what that person has. So like I have a relationship with my kid where I'm dad. But that's a result of doing dad things even when I didn't feel like dad. It didn't feel natural for me. So when we think about the identity piece of it, we can identify, all right, that's the fit, healthy version of me. And that's what they would do. But recognize that that's not necessarily going to be a natural thing for you initially.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
We have to.
That's so.
We have to step into it and in discomfort and be willing to live in that discomfort for a little bit and have it feel unnatural. And the more we do it, the more natural it'll be.
No, that's so true. And that's literally like what I walk my clients through. Like when we first start coaching, I walk them through like creating that list of what are the things that you know you would do if you were the healthy, fit, confident, like rock star version of yourself. And it's never anything crazy. It's never like I would run marathons every day. It's like I would go for a walk every day for 10 minutes. I would work out 3 times a week. And I'm like, okay, we have to start doing that stuff now. And the coaching is us figuring out where the hurdles are, what causes you to self-sabotage, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, like once we have that list set up, you know exactly what you need to do. You know exactly what you need to do every single week, every single day. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be 100%. But now you have that laid out. Like you said, with parenting, like, you know, when the baby poops in their diaper, you have to change the diaper. Like you don't need to go on Instagram and research, what do I do when a baby poops in a diaper, right? Like you just know I got to change the diaper. Then you change it. And then next thing you know, you've changed 1,000 diapers and you're a pro at it. And it doesn't, but like you have to do all those reps. You have to do it. And if you go back to the parent analogy too, like if you look at people, like situations where people are or have been shitty parents, it's always because they were unwilling to let go of some previous identity they had before they were parenting. They were a parent.
Yes.
And it could be something as simple as a dad who likes to, you know, party with his friends all the time. And then he became a dad and didn't make that trade-off and kept partying with his friends all the time. And then he didn't develop a connection. It could be a dad who's a workaholic and then has a kid and then doesn't give up that old identity as a workaholic. And it can be people who have ties to their own childhood, like that, you know, they were abused or whatever it is, and they don't break those ties to that old identity and they continue that cycle of behavior. So that's something that me and my wife are really passionate about when it comes to parenting, is like breaking any cycles from our, you know, family tree that we don't want. And it takes conscious effort to do that, but you have to let go of any stories you have in your head. And when it comes to, fitness, like you have to let go of these fucking stories, these stories that we have of we don't have the time or we don't have the motivation or whatever it is, we don't have the discipline, I'm not meant to be in shape, or whatever it is. Your inability to be consistent with your fitness and nutrition is because you're holding on to some identity that's attached to like a non-fitness lifestyle.
Yeah, expect failure because that's all you've ever experienced.
Yeah.
And the only way to and so then you identify yourself as somebody who can't do this. It's like when I
Yeah.
was a math teacher for a long time, and I get kids who would walk in on the very first day of class and they're like, I'm bad at math. And I'm like, I haven't even asked you to do anything yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't even know, like, this is geometry and you came from algebra. Like, this is
Yeah.
not even the same sphere of math here. You might actually be good at geometry.
Yeah.
You don't even know what I'm asking you to do, but you have decided in your head that your
Yeah.
identity is I'm bad at math. And now that might be founded from your
Mhm.
experiences, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that it has to be what it is forever. Like, we can shift that identity based on our actions. Like, we are what we do. We're a product of what we do. And so
Mhm.
the only way to shift your identity is to start to do things that the person you want to be would do. And so now I'll take it to the last piece and we can
Oh
kind of
yeah.
wrap here, which is
Yeah.
the second piece of it, which is the fear of, well, if I get there, if I get those results, if I become that person, will I be able to sustain it? There's two problems with that.
Mhm.
One is we're expecting the inevitable failure because that's
Mhm.
old identity talking. But the other part of it is you're thinking about a person's problems from your current place,
Yeah.
like future you's problems. But you, it's like going back to the parent analogy. If you dropped Jeff, parent of a 3 day old infant, Jeff, into my current parenting situation with a
Yeah.
4-year-old and twin 2.5-year-olds, he would quite literally die. Like, he would just leave. Like, he
Yeah.
could not do it. And it's not because that guy wouldn't want to or whatever, but like, you grow in it through the
Mhm.
process. And so the problems that you face down the line, you're better prepared for because you went on the journey to get there and you
Mhm.
became that person who is, like, in the process of doing it over and over again. You became the person who just does that stuff. So you're not worried about all of these little bits and pieces because in order to get there, you will have done it for long enough to feel confident that you're going to keep doing it.
Yeah, and I'd even make the argument to say like if you did drop that Jeff in your current situation, that as long as you were committed to the idea that I'm going to figure this out, that you would figure it out,
At
right?
some point, yeah.
Like,
It would
yeah, it would be
immediate Jeff's reaction would be, I don't know about this. but but
think about it. But think about the decision though. Like the decision would be like if you, let's say, you like crazy circumstances, like your wife got pregnant and then things are going well, whatever, and then it's time to give birth, and all of a sudden they're like, we didn't see this on the ultrasound, but it's triplets, right? Like we thought
yeah.
we were having one baby, and it's going to be three. I know you have the twins, but like but imagine like all three of them popped out at the same time.
Yeah.
Your exposure to parenting would be at a higher level right off the
Yeah.
bat. But because you were committed to the idea that I'm a parent now, you would just figure it out. Right. And same thing with the math analogy. If you had two kids walk into your classroom and they both said, I'm bad at math, and they both said, I suck at math, which one is going to get the better grade? The kid who shows up every day or the kid who just ditches class?
Yeah.
Right. Even with that preconceived identity, he might still only get a D in math that year, but the kid who didn't show up is going to get the F.
Yeah.
But what happens with adults in their fitness is if they get the D, instead of going, okay, I got a D, how do I get a C next year or at next month or whatever it is, they just go, they stand up to the bully.
Mm-hmm.
This sucks. This is why nothing works. This is why I never do fitness. It's so restrictive. They denounce it. They go the whole opposite direction in order to gain back some semblance of control. And then when that adrenaline rush wears off, and something triggers their insecurity again, they get remotivated, and now the urgency is higher, so they do the next yo-yo thing. So I think what hopefully when people are listening to the conversations like this, they're taking away like, hey, listen, I got to commit to this identity. I got to do small little things every day, that are like simple things, the same way that I would change diapers, the same day I would, burp a baby. It's these little things over and over and over again, and then I'll grow into this role. But I have to first like just accept this like identity. I'm a fit, healthy person. I do fit, healthy person things, and we just roll with that, right? Because I'm sure there's been times where the baby's pooped and maybe you didn't realize it right away, and then maybe they got a
Mhm.
rash, right? Okay, I got to be more aware of that next time. We don't go, well, this is why parenting is bullshit. This is why I
Well, and
should never
it's
become a
also like
parent.
it doesn't mean like that response is, well, clearly I'm not good at changing diapers. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like, you know how to change a diaper. It just means that you
yeah,
might have missed a moment. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And you're not going to go. But to, I think, put a pin in it with exactly what you said, and then I'll kind of throw it to you to finish here, which is people ask me all the time, and this is not to toot my own horn, but people ask me all the time when they hear. Like, I was down at a conference this weekend, and I met a few people, and they were like, and I was like, well, I have a 4-year-old and twin 2.5-year-olds, and anytime I tell anybody this, you can imagine the look on their face, right? They're like, holy
Yeah,
cow, like. Or
yeah,
when we originally had it, we had an 18-month-old and then twin newborns. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, just think about that for a moment. We had 3 kids, 18 months and 19 months and under. Everybody's like, how are you doing it? And you're like, you just do the thing because
yeah,
it needs to get done. And this is like, I'm dad. Like, if I don't do it, it's not like I have to do it. There's no if I don't do it. You know what I mean? Like, I have to do it. It's a necessary thing because I'm their dad
yeah,
and they need me. So it's not a matter of whether or not I'm going, like, it has to get done. And so
yeah,
because that's my identity, I have to figure it out. There's
yeah,
no, like, I don't know how I do it. I just do it. Like, we talk, my wife and I talk about it all the time. It's like everybody's like, how are you doing it? And we're like, don't freaking know. We're
yeah,
not doing it great sometimes, but we keep
yeah,
showing up because there's no other option. Like, you
yeah,
can't just, we're not just going to punt on their lives.
yeah,
And so when we take the idea of you don't get an out,
yeah,
when
yeah.
you take
That's
quitting
that's
off the
that's
table,
the commitment. That's the commitment,
you,
right? Is whenever a client says that to me in a check-in, like, oh man, I'm really proud of myself, because I was frustrated last week, but I didn't quit, so I'm proud of myself. I go, yeah, it's good to be proud of yourself, but I just want to let you know that like when you say that, what you're saying is that quitting was an option.
yeah,
And if you're giving it an option, if you're allowing it to be an option, you're eventually going to choose it. So we have to just take that off the table right now. And I'm not saying that that means you have to stay signed up with a coach for the rest of your life, but this whole process that we're working on, if you keep saying that you're proud that you didn't quit, all you're telling yourself is that you could choose that one day.
yep,
And we just got to take that off the table.
yeah. That would be the parenting equivalent of like, oh, I might leave. It's
Yeah.
like, no, you're
I'm
not going
glad
to
I'm
leave.
yeah, I'm glad I didn't abandon my kids this week. I should get a
I'm
pat on the back for
I'm
that.
glad I didn't, like the whatever chick it was in, oh man, just a devastating story of the woman who was just like, I'm just out. I'm gonna leave my kid in a pack and play for 10 days with no food, and you know what I mean, just to like,
Was that a
you
real
know what I mean,
thing?
like that was a real thing. Did you not hear this story? It's most
I
one of the
never
most
watched the
heartbreaking things.
news.
It was like all over my, it was a bunch of parents that were,
Oh yeah.
understandably outraged about it, right? Like, and this
Oh,
judge
absolutely.
just like ripped her. That was the best part. The
Yeah.
judge just like ripped into her. She's like, I hope you, you know what I mean? Like, you
Yeah.
deserved
Yeah.
it. But it was just like, it's heartbreaking. But like, a woman who's like, and we revile that. We
Hmm.
revile the idea. Like, there, there's not a lot worse in terms of like how people like the deadbeat dad who runs out on his family, you
Hmm.
know what I mean? Like the abandoning, like you
Hmm.
just give up because it's too
Yeah.
hard. Like you would
Yeah.
never like you anybody listening to this wouldn't consider that. Right? I just
Yeah.
know you wouldn't. And
Yeah.
so and the idea of it is so foreign to you,
Hmm.
but it's not because of the thing, although it is because of the thing, but it's because you're like, no, it's just not what I would just never do it. It's not an option.
Yeah.
And so when your
Yeah.
kids are being little terrorists, and just
Yeah.
horrible to you, emotionally abusing you or physically abusing you, like hitting me as my kids
Yeah.
did last night. No other place would you just be like, all right, we're just going to figure this out. But when you take quitting off the table, then it becomes a lot easier for you to just recognize, all right, it's not a matter of if I do this, it's how do I do this? How do
Yeah.
I figure it out?
How do I figure this out? And I think if it helps too, is I always, again, I reframe this for my clients all the time, is I just always ask, like, when it comes to taking care of yourself, picture like the advice you would give your kid,
Mm-hmm.
and just, go down that route. So when you're making decisions for yourself, and you're going to self-sabotage, or you're going to shame yourself for not losing weight that week, just be like, all right, would I say that to my kid? And if the answer
Yeah.
is no, then just treat yourself the way you would want to treat your kid, because you also
It's
wouldn't
like
tell your kid, hey, give up on working out because it's too hard.
yeah. It's the reverse golden rule. Like I tell clients that all the time. I'm like, would you talk to anybody else the way that you talk to yourself?
Yeah, never.
You would never
Not even someone you
be
dislike.
no, you
Yeah.
wouldn't.
Yeah.
And so like why are you just
And I get
being
it.
your
It's
own
it's
worst
tough.
critic?
I get it. It's tough. It's tough, and I've been guilty of that too. I'm sure you have too,
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
being too negative and hard on ourselves. So it's not like I'm above it. It's
Mhm.
just I've definitely developed better patterns and mindset reframes over the years to
Yeah.
help pull me out of that mindset.
And the way that you pull your like you don't. I heard this said by Chris Wilkes, and I think we can. Chris Williamson. I think we can kind of finish here. He said you can't use the mind to fix the mind. Like you need to
Yeah,
fix the
yeah,
mind with the body. Like you have to take action in order to pull yourself out of a mental place. So the only way,
100%.
like if
Yeah,
you're like, I can't, I'm in a rut, I can't figure it out. Like the only way out, you're not going to think yourself out of it. You're not going to will yourself out of it. You're not going to motivate yourself out of it. The only way
yeah,
out is to go back to the action.
yeah. I love that.
Well, Adam, man, I really appreciate it. I know we went a little long for what your timeline here is, but just love talking to you, man, and so much value here. We obviously could have gone. We've done. I think this is our third podcast together. I'm sure we'll do many more.
I hope so.
But where can people find you so that they can connect with you?
At Badger Strength on Instagram is probably the best place to go, because you'll find links to all my stuff there. Badgerstrength.com. I have a ton of blogs and stuff up there too, articles, free articles. I have a podcast called Talk and Fit. And I also have several free resources, like free 7-day jumpstart plans, restaurant eating out guide, things like that to help. But those will also, if you ever want to sign up for any of those will also get you access to my email list. And I send out 3 to 5 really informative emails a week that are just meant to help. So any of the stuff I just mentioned, if you just go to my Instagram page of at Badger Strength, you could find links to all those things.
Awesome, and I'll link all that in the show notes. But Adam, appreciate it, buddy, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay, appreciate you coming on.
Awesome, man. Thank you.